Not just throwing stuff out there. But anyways, so it's good to see her this week. I have good news for us on the, I don't know why, I just want to share this with you. I'm so excited because a friend of mine, I've told you about a friend of mine before that fell 20 feet on his head on concrete. Tiffany, you remember events, you know, but he's been here before playing the drums, and he was helping another church out like a couple times a month, and he's not helping them anymore. And so he has, he said, I want to come to the bridge a couple times a month. And so, and then Mike Moravik, you know, who's been here, is going to help us. So we're, you know, the whole music thing's come together. I love drums. I love to clap, and I have no rhythm. And so I know that I can either clap on the bass or the snare. When there's a drummer here, that's the only way I can clap. I will not clap otherwise, okay? I'm not going to make a fool out of myself. Plus the drums make it a little bit louder, so you don't hear me clapping on the okay? Sometimes my grandfather's Pentecostal gets in me and I do double claps, you know? But I have to have drums to do it. So to me, that's an exciting thing. You know, I love full band. But so I say all that to say, she was sick this week. I didn't talk to her. She didn't know what I was talking about. But the words to the song, the last song that we just sang as a worship is, I want today to be a little bit of an awakening for us, for you, and not really an awakening. You know, I'm not the purveyor of new revelation. Okay, I act like I know it all. I really know nothing. Okay. It's funny. And this has been the way since I started a church in Covington several years ago, and then I've been here. My churches are always like laid back, and we'll laugh a little bit, but we're not really amen churches until I start making fun of myself. Just some kind of charismatic, people start falling out, hallelujah. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm cool with that. I'm great with that. But I want today to make you think, and we're going to read a passage of scripture that everybody's heard before, okay? And has gone through, and I want you to think about something two ways. We're going to look at this passage a little bit different maybe than you've ever looked at it before, okay? And number two, I want you to look at Jesus and how he taught a little bit different than you've ever looked at it before, because here's what I know. Here's what I know about when you grow up in church. Even when you're in this church around, you hear me speak. Sometimes whoever's speaking can come across as, "Hey, this is the fact. This is the way it is. You know, here's my dogma. I'm gonna throw it out to you." And you try to think in a box or in a system, you know, and you want to believe what the person is saying. And so we look at the teachings of Jesus as fitting into the same system of beliefs that the person who's speaking. But as rabbis go, rabbis and teachers, and even nowadays, some of the best ones, they say things, and they say it two different ways to make you think about what you're asking or what they're saying. Okay? Like somebody comes to you, to a rabbi, and says, "All right, this guy murdered my family member. Should I then go and murder them? Because there's this reason, there's eye for an eye, all this stuff." And a rabbi, a good teacher, would make you think through that decision by their answer. You know, like if you murder them, will good come out of it? Or, you know, just, they'll give you an answer by sort of making you think through it. And you may come to a different conclusion than what they're trying to make you think about. But a good teacher makes you think and tries to make you think of things totally different than you had before. Now, when I was in college, I learned that I do have a little bit of a gift in this. You know, I'm always quick to make fun of myself, but I can tell you, I'm going to brag on one of my gifts that I have. My favorite classes in college were philosophy. Because philosophy, you can write whatever you want and get an A. And you didn't even have to read the philosopher's writings. You can just, if you wrote enough about the topic, you know, they think you know something and use fancy words here and there. I'm just kidding. If you're about to go into college, I'm not condoning that at all. But I love reading the philosophers, and I love reading their point of view, and I love the discussion of it. I love, in college English classes, I had this one professor, Dr. Althusson, he has no idea that I loved him to death. And he was a guy, he had a beard, he was going bald, his hair was cut neat, but he was from the hippie movement. He had some different thoughts. And he would always love my input because I have a gift of looking at things from a different angle than most people look at the same thing. And that's what we're going to look at today, okay? And what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father. If you grew up in the Northeast, I love the Our Father because I played Pop Warner football. Wasn't very good. I was a late bloomer. Me and my son Isaac were late bloomers. I had an older brother, the way Isaac does. Isaac's older brother Jake, he's been an athlete since he came out of the womb. And stuff comes easy to him. His coordination is good. Isaac's movements are a little bit more quirky. But here's what happened to me with my brother Chris. My brother Chris, same way. He could pick up any sport, didn't have to work hard, was good at all of them. Me, I had to focus on a couple that I liked, and when it clicked, I became really good at them. But as a kid, he was stronger than me, faster than me, more skilled than me. And then somewhere when we got to high school, we were on the same basketball team. I was a sophomore and he was a senior, and my coordination started catching up and it was clicking. I was like I was a sophomore starting on varsity. I had the most points and everything. Somewhere I surpassed him. He's still a guy that I look up to. He's like one of my heroes. Girls loved Chris. All right, I was goofy looking, but Chris was like the stud. I mean, girls would just walk up to him and start flirting with him. He'd just stand there and he had this aura about him. And my best friend Dexter always said that I worshipped the ground Chris walked on, and maybe I did. But he was good looking. He was sharp. Girls were crazy about him. I remember one time when we were out of high school, we were in college, and we were back home in Wilmington, and we were at this establishment where people dance and stuff. I think they call it a club. And I remember my brother Chris was standing by a pole one time. He was just standing there looking around. And it just caught my attention. And these couple of girls walked up to Chris and started talking to him. He started talking back, and then they walked off. And I was like, it's that easy? So I went and stood by that pole. I stood there the rest of the night, by myself, watching people dance, doing a little move every now and again, just seeing what was going on. And I realized it wasn't the pole or the location, it was the person. Chris, if you're watching this, I still have all my hair on my head. I'm better looking than you now. I'm more athletic than you, and I'm pretty much smarter than you. I have surpassed you, so it's my gift to you. I still love you. But no, I've come to see, I can't, but when we were in Pop Warner together, Chris was a beast. But I love being in Pop Warner. I love playing football. And one of the things I love about it is you're real nervous before the game, right? You're real nervous. This is up in New Jersey. You're all nervous, and you're ready to play. And one of the coaches one time described it perfectly. It was like he was reading my mail. It was like I was in church. He goes, I know you guys are nervous right now. You're excited about playing this game. You're squirting a little pee in your jock strap. And that's what I would do, man. I was so nervous I'd pee in my pants a little bit, you know. I was like, this guy knows me. He gets me. And what we would do before every game, whether you were Jewish or Christian, up north you were Jewish or Christian, we'd say the Our Father. And we'd all get together and we said the Our Father. And it was just, I look back at that as a sacred memory in my life, not necessarily a spiritual one, but just, I loved it, man. I loved game day, and especially since our teams were awesome. We never lost. But I love game day, and I love being there before the game. We get in there, and these filthy mouth coaches that slung me around during the week said, bring it in, and said the Our Father. You know, that one point in time, black and white, whether you're from the township or the borough, we're all together, one team, one family, saying the Our Father. And some people, when you talk about prayer, they think of the Our Father. You know, I said 10 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys. I'm covered. I'm covered this week. We're going to look at the Lord's Prayer a little bit differently this morning. And I want you to think about prayer for a second, because on our the team that we're building here, the things that motivate us and sustain us and give us strength are our vision, right? We have this vision of this safe place. Matter of fact, that's probably on the next slide. To provide a safe place where people can experience God's love and realize their purpose. Okay, I was I was in youth ministry, and I went to this conference one time. It was called Sun Life. It was an awesome conference I went to because this guy had done his doctoral thesis on Jesus' strategy for winning the world. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with all this guy's philosophy before, but he broke things down in a way that made me think about ministry totally different than I had before. I could see the process of what Jesus was doing a lot of times when he was working with people. And so there was one of the sections was on prayer and how the importance of prayer is, okay? And he had a quote in this little book from this guy that I've never forgotten the quote, but I've long since forgotten the guy who made the quote. But he said, when it comes to building disciples, because that was his whole thing, building disciples of Jesus, he said, when it comes to building disciples, it's true that we can literally do everything right and fail to pray, and nothing significant will happen. And that always made an impact on me. I don't even know if I totally agree with that all the time, because, you know, if God is God, there are certain things that can happen and that are going to happen just because he puts some stuff, because there's, you know, nature is the way it is and things happen a certain way. But I truly believe that there's this element that is beyond ourselves called prayer, that if we're providing a safe place and we're providing a place where people can really experience God's love through his people, and where people can find their purpose and follow that, there is this element that we have at our fingertips at any time that we can use, this resource that we can have, that we draw this energy and this power and this strength that I cannot explain through prayer. And nobody has an excuse that there's no access to God. So when you think about your ideas about prayer, this is what I want you to think about right now. Your ideas about prayer. Because, man, there are so many. Prayer has always been a tough subject for me. Okay? And I have focus issues, okay? Literally, in real life, I have focus issues. I have my whole life, and as I've gotten older, I've learned to cope with them. I've done very well. I've run ministries, I've run businesses, I've done successful in sales, and it's because I've learned tricks to coping with the fact that I have a very bad attention span. I forget things all the time. So what happens to people like me is you learn to cope. You know you're going to lose your keys whenever you set them down. So you learn that when you come home, you put your keys in a certain place. For me, it's one of 10 places. But you put your keys in a certain place. And so when you're about to leave, you know you can look at that place first. And if you put your keys in that certain place, they're going to be there. Problem is, sometimes you forget to put your keys in a certain place when you come in. You're freaking out, panicking, threatening your children with their lives, telling them we're not going on vacation this year, I can't find it, you know, all this stuff. You learn to cope with. And so part of when I would learn about prayer and people would teach about prayer, I had a lot of guilt about prayer because I could not focus for the time frames that people would say, good prayers pray. Has anybody ever felt that guilt? That you don't pray long enough. I'm going to get up before the pastor did at 4 o'clock every morning from now on for the rest of my life till the apocalypse comes. I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock and pray for an hour, and by 4:15 you're asleep with praise and worship music on, drool coming out. I start praying, my prayers turn into thoughts, it's turned into dreams, you know. I'm shaking myself, I'm late for work, you know. It's been that kind of guilt. And then you have patterns of prayer, patterns that were taken out of the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, that we're going to talk about this way. People say, you got to pray like this, and here's the pattern. Because Jesus gave this pattern. And I'm going to tell you something. Prayer is, if you have that idea of guilt of prayer because you don't pray long enough, I don't think Jesus ever put that pressure or burden or guilt on anybody, any of his followers, anybody. But there was something about Jesus that his disciples watched, because in Mark or Luke, one of them, they come to him and they say, Jesus, will you teach us to pray? John taught his disciples to pray. Will you teach us to pray? But his prayer they saw that there were times that Jesus went away to pray and he came back and miracles happened. He went away to pray and he walked on the water back to him. He went away to pray and he calmed storms and people were healed and demons went into pigs. And, you know, they're like, man, this guy has a connection. And if you saw somebody like that, right? You see somebody with connections, you want to know what that guy's doing, right? In sales, when you see a salesperson who really knows how to network, if you're a smart salesperson, you watch that guy. Watch how he networks. Watch how he follows through. Watch how, because you want to network like that guy, because his job's getting easier and easier because he knows how to network with people. And your job's getting harder and harder because you're just beating the bricks every day. So you watch people, and so these disciples watch them, and they're like, you know, I want to tap into whatever it is you're tapping into, man. If it's a, you know, if I hold my fingers up, if I hum, whatever I got to do, if I got to pay you money, I mean, people do anything to get this spiritual connection going. So his disciples, they asked him about prayer. They asked him to teach them to pray. So in the Lord's Prayer is that thy will be done, and that we sang about today. It's just amazing that, you know, we didn't talk, and here's Sherry singing this song about this, and Jesus what's the next slide? I don't remember. Oh, we talked about Jesus. Let's go. Well, we buy into our coach's philosophy, and Jesus prayed. Okay, so let's go to the next one. In Matthew 6 is the Lord's Prayer. But here's the thing: I thought I had another slide in there, but I didn't. When Jesus prayed, when he talked to his disciples about prayer, you have to know this about Jesus. He was very relational. And I believe when he's talking about prayer, I see the relational part of Jesus here. And so if you have your experience of prayer is, I got to pray for a long time, boom, I've got guilt because I don't do that, so stuff's not going to happen good in my life. Remember the quote I gave you, if we do everything right, we fail to pray, nothing significant will happen. One of the things I don't like about that quote is there's a certain amount of manipulation there, okay? That we got to pray, and we don't just have to pray, we got to pray the right way. And I wanted to pull this stuff from the website, but didn't want to. I saw this thing that this guy had about the Lord's Prayer and how to get your prayers answered. And he had this website, and he had step 1, 2, and 3, and he had these testimonials. I needed a car, and not only did I get a car, I got the red car that I wanted, and you know, all these. And some of them were pretty, you know, my marriage is falling apart, and I used this prayer thing, and my marriage is together, and all this stuff. And I cringe at stuff like that, because some of us, we think prayer is, if I pray, I'll get what I want. Right? How many of you ever thought of that? Man, I got something I need, or I get what I need, you know? Can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, right? I get what I need. So, I want you to not think about prayer in that way either. Get what I want, get what I need. Now look, Jesus did say in his teachings to his disciples, he said, hey look, man, if you need something, make your request known to the Father, okay? Make it known. Some things you don't have, you don't ask for. So there's an element that when you talk to God, that you ask him for things. There's nothing wrong with asking him for things, okay? But if you think prayer is the way to get what you want or what you need, and if you pray right, the prayers will be answered. Any of you who spent a significant amount of time